Okay, if we can get everyone to take a seat, we'll call the Joint Committee meeting of Water Resources to order. And if the clerk would, take a silent roll call. Just to talk very briefly before we get started, one of the things that we saw over the course of the last several months is the flooding that occurred within West Virginia. Several people asked me questions. As a civil engineer, I recognize the value of having stream monitoring, but also to understand what the predictive methodologies are in order to understand what's going to happen on a particular riverine watershed at any particular point in time. And so what I did is I thought it was appropriate that we go ahead, since it's fresh in our minds, to get agencies that we rely upon to come and, first of all, give us a little understanding of what occurred during the course of the flooding events of June 23 and thereafter, but more importantly, to help us understand what changes may be necessary to be proactive, rather than being reactionary, we're being proactive in order to be able to understand what's happening in a particular watershed at any particular time throughout the state, and be able to tell and warn people in advance, well in advance, of the flooding events. And so, it's always time to go back and do a critique and an evaluation. And I want this today, more than anything else, not to be a finger pointing, but more importantly, to be interactive between all of us and asking questions just to help us all vet through this process, so that if there's changes that we need to be looking at in the future that are going to impact our budget, we need to be looking at that and begin doing that planning process now over the course of the next year, 3 years, 5 years down the road. So with that being said, we've got three agencies that are represented this morning: United States Geological Survey, Jeremy White's here, Jimmy and Jeanette with our Homeland Security, and Jamie, and I'm going to blow this, Jamie, I'm sorry, Belinsky, and John Sikora of National Weather Service. Obviously, we rely on these agencies to help us get notifications out to the public at any particular point in time when an emergency arises within our state. So without further ado, Jeremy, I'm going to let you take lead on this. And then after the presenters, then what we will do is we'll just open the floor for some interactive questions, and that we can hopefully look to the future. Jeremy?
Appreciate you hosting us this morning. Give us an opportunity to.
Where'd that mic go?
Please go. Don't need this?
Yes, please. We're live streaming.
Right. Okay. Is this working at all?
You got him on the
Does it feel like it is?
Doesn't really
wireless.
sound like it.
Does it feel like it is now?
I'm not sure which.
It was working like that.
Is
there
buttons?
Is it working out?
both wirelesses?
Single switch.
Well, the button that we're getting red light, but I don't know.
Okay.
This one is working.
All right. Everyone can hear me now, okay? As I was introduced, I'm with the U.S. Geological Survey. We have an office here in Charleston. We're a federal agency that falls under the Department of Interior. Our sole mission is really to collect unbiased science for federal agencies, for state agencies. We have no regulatory authority. We have no enforcement authority. So our mission is to collect scientific data. A lot of that falls within our cooperative water program. And that's a lot of the basis for our gauging network here in West Virginia. I do want to mention, though, that the USGS has a lot of different disciplines of study. We're not just water. You guys are probably familiar with our mapping and volcano work. I mean, that's probably where you hear USGS most often, but our water resources are one of 7 different disciplines that we study. Back to the Cooperative Water Program, we're not federally appropriated completely. So part of our mission is to get out on the landscape and interact with state and local agencies. Number one, that keeps the science close to home. We have our upper level mission, but we also have to work with state and local agencies to determine what the local needs are, and that is a lot of what this gauging program is all about. There are, larger scale things that we care about nationally, but a lot of the mission is local, and the Cooperative Water Program allows us to do that. Sometimes that complicates things, to be honest, because we're really the only agency within the USGS even that's not fully appropriated. So it's a lot of work on our end to get out and kind of beat the bushes and maintain funding for ourselves and to get our mission accomplished. So I want to talk briefly about what a stream gauge itself is. I'm sure everyone has probably seen them if they've been along the riverbanks here and there. There's a lot of old concrete monolith type structures. That's kind of the historical type of structure. They were old stilling wells. Now we're able to install a gauge within about a day or so. That's no more than a 24-inch by 24-inch box on the bridge. The technology has improved dramatically over the past 10 years. We do a lot of pressure sensing of water level. We also use radars to sense the water surface as well. One thing that's becoming more and more common is measure of velocity within the stream also. We have some stations around the state that are just too problematic for other means of data collection, so we're able to collect velocity and calculate our flows that way. But ultimately, the gauge stream side is collecting stage data, so that's the water level. That's probably the parameter that most people are familiar with. But from that, that data is logged every 15 minutes in most cases. It gets transmitted via the GOES satellites. There are 2 satellites perched over the U.S. that we send our signals to. Those come back to a ground station and then into our database. This is a very reliable system. We have very few failures based on the transmission itself. If anything, it's issues on either the database end or the gauging equipment. And that data is viewed every day by our staff. So they're looking to see what data is out there that could possibly be erroneous based on failures at the site. So we talk about flow also. The sensors out there, they measure stage. We have to convert that to flow. So that's where the workforce comes in. We make independent measurements 6 to 8 times a year at all of our stations across a varying range of flows. That technology is also improved. We use hydroacoustics primarily now. That's it's basically not that different from the Doppler that the Weather Service is using. We're just kind of pointing in a different direction. That instrumentation allows us really to profile the stream at an incredible level of detail. That's a tool that can be used not only for stream flow measurements, but also for velocity readings, like kind of on a longitudinal plane with the river. So we'd be looking at velocities down a reach. An application of that might be for spill response. We can help collect data that allows us to determine, how quickly things might be moving down through a channel. So again, from the time data are transmitted, they're publicly available, within 5 minutes. It's a really quick turnaround processing time to get data out to the public. Currently here in West Virginia, we have 87 discharge or flow stations that I spoke of. So those are the ones where we calculate the actual flow. There are another 41 stage-only stations, so that's where we're sensing only water service. Those have different applications depending on the users. We have reservoir gauges that we run for the folks with the Conservation Agency and for the Corps of Engineers. There are 61 rain gauges in our network also. Those are transmitted along with our stage data primarily and also available immediately on the public web. We also have a small groundwater level monitoring network. We use these for more long-term type indications of how dry things are, how wet things are. It's a better indicator of climate. And there's also 13 crest stage gauges, and these are just peak verification. That's a lot of work that we do for the Department of Highways. Like I said, we're cooperatively funded. We work with partners. Right now, we have about 20 partners within the state. We work with our National Stream Flow Information Program. I said we've got this kind of upper level priority for gauges. So that program is USGS funded, and it's long-term type sites, and that's the primary focus of what we're trying to get out of that network. And we put that funding into a number of gauges within the state that meet the criteria, for the NSIP program. There's 5 or 6 criteria that qualify, but accounting-wise, we push it out to as many gauges as we can to help support this network. We work with the Corps of Engineers quite a lot, both in Huntington and Pittsburgh. We have a small program with the National Park Service as well. Within the state, we work a lot with DEP, different divisions there in DEP, the Conservation Agency, DNR, Highways, and we also work with, down even smaller level, with the City of Hurricane, City of Marietta, Martinsburg. So it goes all the way down to a pretty small scale. We also work with private companies. We have the ability to take money from private companies to run gauges as well. We work with Brian Carr quite a lot on getting some gauges together for the oil and gas industry. They have to withdraw water. They don't know how much they've got, so they've paid us to come in and put gauges close to where they want to withdraw. So there's lots of different applications. We've got a funding distribution here. Sorry. Good. That's what I want. So here's just kind of a basic funding breakdown, which hopefully I'm not too much in the way. As you can see, we're pretty well distributed. The kind of light blue color at 33% is USGS funding. That's going to be mostly that National Stream Flow Information Program funding. We're about 35% with other federal agencies. That's primarily going to be the Corps of Engineers. And then 28% is state funding. So that's a really good distribution between funding of partners. It's excellent. It's not that common that we have that good of a distribution in other centers within the country. There's a lot heavier bias for local partners being a major part of the funding structure. But we're lucky enough to be able to maintain the network in that way here. So bringing me to the conversation of the West Virginia Water Gauging Council. Back in 2005, we had a significant loss of funding through one of our programs. So that prompted us to get together with cooperators and other agencies to determine what the needs were of the gauging community. So since 2005, we've been meeting loosely quarterly as a group. And the main focus of this council is to talk about and determine what's important as far as gauging goes here in the state. Funding is obviously part of the conversation. We work together really well as a group to find and fill the holes in funding as things arise. It's also an opportunity for us to exchange ideas and to kind of keep our pulse on what's important in the gauging community. I see it from the federal level, but it gives an opportunity to look at the state and local level to make sure we're covering and collecting data that's valid and relevant to everyone. Here's a quick list of the current Gauging Council members. You guys can read through those. Again, it's most of our cooperating partners. It's also folks like the Rivers Coalition and Canadian Valley Institute. So it's a pretty thorough footprint of those that might be interested in the gauging program here in the state. So we talk about data delivery. I said, the gauge transmits data. We get it into the database in 5 or so minutes. It's 15-minute data generally, so it's a pretty comprehensive data set. That's all publicly available again. I wanted to focus though more on the water alert system. One of the focuses here is how we're going to communicate gauge data. So water alert is it's a mobile application essentially that allows users to receive data via text message or email based on given parameters at that gauge. It queries the database rather than the gauge itself. So that means the data can be as much as an hour old, but in nearly all applications, that's really that's frequent enough to be able to get good indicators to what the streams are doing. It's an excellent tool. For example, I have here During the June event, almost 16,000 alerts were sent out to users here in West Virginia alone. So it's not utilized like it could be at this point, but there are currently over 1,700 subscriptions to it, and that's at 128 different stations within the state. There's only approximately 200 stations, so nearly every station in the state is getting pinged with some kind of alert. So emergency managers could be using this. People that have a camp on the other side of the river could be using this. People that want to go boating can use this. It's an excellent. Again, it's as simple as a subscription. Sign up. You get a text or email anytime a certain threshold is met. That's all you find. So it's an excellent tool. Another thing, as far as delivery, we can send random transmissions that are also based on user-defined parameters. If a stream is coming up at a certain height, we can say, hey, we want this thing to send out information, and we can do that. There's a new network of satellites called the Iridium network. Those allow for transmissions like every 6 minutes. It is it's currently a pay-for-service kind of plan, but we're working with our Department of Defense. They helped develop this satellite network and technology, so we're working for a way to get it directly into our database and out to the users without using an outside vendor. I think it's got a lot of potential. There's no issues really with coverage. Your data is going to get out, and it's an excellent system. Cell modems, that's another way to get data out. Technology's improved quite a lot. Here in West Virginia, the drawback of that is still cellular coverage. The technology's there from a gauge perspective, though. So one thing I wanted to talk about, too, is all these data are National Water Information System. I've got handouts down here that I'd like to provide to everyone with a variety of links to different data sources. And it's a good system. Basically, all data that we collect is there. Anything that's published, which means that we have approved the data, is available. We have put a lot of time and effort into collecting good data and getting it out to the public as quickly as possible so decisions can be made. I'll move on from that. I wanted to talk briefly about how we responded to the June events, the flooding events. We had crews out at sites, as the floods were happening, making those independent measurements to help develop these ratings and discharge calculations. We brought in crews from Maine, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, Missouri, and Colorado to get this data collected as quickly as we could. So we were out primarily in the Upper Elk, Golly, and Greenbrier. We were down that way too. That was the mission. You can calculate flows post-flood with doing some channel surveying. So that's what we're out doing, determining high waters, profiling those streams and mapping those. And that's all publicly accessible as well. We're still working on those calculations, how much flow we actually had. Of our gauging stations, though, we had period of record peaks at 10 sites in the state. They were mostly concentrated in the Upper Elk Basin and in the Golly Basins. This was a big event. Hands down, it was huge. The Greenbrier was affected heavily also on the lower end. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of gauging down there. We've got gauges on the main stem of the Greenbrier, but not a lot of the tributaries. Howard's Creek was a big deal. We don't gauge there, unfortunately. Throughout all this, though, we only had one gauge that went down, which was really awesome. We spent a lot of time and effort to make sure when we install gauges that they're above certain thresholds. And we did have one that went down. It was fixed within a couple days and back in operating. That's all I have. Hopefully I didn't take up too much time. Thanks again for the time here. And I'll pass it on to the Weather Service. Sure.
The delegate from Kanawha.
How much is the state's contribution each year to your
Financial?
Yes, sir.
The total program is about $1.6 million. So of that, they've got 30%. So that's
not substantial.
$400,000 range.
You said there was a reduction in your funding. Was that federal reduction?
Back in 2005, it was a state issue. It was just a shuffling of funds and priorities.
Okay, did it impair your ability to continue the stream
We
gauging?
lost some gauges, but fortunately we were able to piece things together really through this gauging network, or through the gauging council.
Did we lose any in the June flooding, any
No.
gauges that would have been there but for the loss of funding? And you said that information from satellite could be paid for now. Is that something that's available to the state based on its contribution, or would we have to pay specially for it?
It's all going to come in and be publicly accessible. I mean, everything we do is public. So would you get it before the public? No.
Well, no, I understood that the
Okay.
satellite
Sure.
system that they were charging, that you were supposed to pay for that. That's not the case.
It would have to be part of the program. But again, we're working with the Department of Defense. That's why we haven't jumped on this technology yet. We're kind of waiting to see if we're going to get USGS is going to get access to this network of satellites.
Now,
We can get it now, but it would be a pay service.
now, your gauges are for stream flow, not quality of water, correct?
We also monitor water quality. There's a network of about 25 sites. Could be anything from temperature only to conductance, pH, dissolved oxygen, turbidity. There's lots of new technology out there with that as well.
Where are those primarily located?
We've got some up on the West Fork. There's one on the Greenbrier in Alderson. We have one on Shavers Fork, up in the headwaters of the Shavers. And those are funded through different programs.
Kanawha?
We don't have any water quality monitoring on the canal.
How about the elk?
Nope. Temperature.
Thank you.
Sure.
Quick question, thank you for being here.
Appreciate having me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have is, are your databases tied to the emergency system that's headquartered downstairs?
Not directly. I mean, they can get obviously to the public data. There's also a lot of web scripting you can do to pull that data into other databases. That's not something we work on our end, but it's a service that we provide kind of at a higher level.
It seems like it would be a good idea to have some connection. These things are hard to predict.
Sure.
In real time, but it might be helpful if alarms were going off.
Right. And as I said, everything is going to a GO satellite right now. The Weather Service pulls that data in directly. The Corps of Engineers pulls that data in directly, straight off of the ground stations. So they're not going through our database to get it. They're getting things directly. But there's not a tool right now for state agencies to pull that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And again, you are solely monitoring, you're not doing any predictive work,
We
is that
do
correct?
no predictive work.
Okay, good deal. Yeah. Chairman?
Mr. White, thanks for being here. Just on the bottom line, if you one gauge was damaged and all, where was that gauge at?
Camden on Gollers.
Okay, thank you.
That was a good one up there. So yeah, it went underwater by half a foot or so. The electronics were damaged. We dodged a bullet in a few other places by.
We saw some record events in these watersheds.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Jeremy, there may be some other questions that pop up. Our Director of Homeland Security, Jimmy Giannette.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Jimmy Jeanette, and I'm the Director of the State's Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. I have with me this morning Bill Wood, who oversees our IFLOS, or Integrated Flood Warning and Observation System. I'm just going to talk just a couple of minutes about the system, the history of it, and the number of gauges we have. And then I think once you hear from the Weather Service and integrate our presentations, it may give you a better perspective of how the system works and how we use that data. We don't do predictions in our office, but we are directly connected with the Weather Service and generally have somebody embedded in our office during these events from the Weather Service to make sure that we have real-time information. So the IFLOS system was born out of the 77 floods that many of us remember. In 1979, the Weather Service began a pilot program with 3 states, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia, and 12 counties along those 3 state borders. That prototype went operational in 1981, and the system began to expand. There are some resource limitations, as we all know, primarily funding. in the expansion of the system, but it's continued to grow for several years, and we've kind of stabled off now as we try to identify other avenues of funding to help continue to expand the program. Our office's primary mission with the integrated flood warning and observation system is to maintain it and continue the construction of it. We currently have 221 radio reporting real-time rain gauges and 62 stream gauges that are attached to the system. That information is relayed to our office at Big Chimney and then fed through the internet to various users of that information. In 2001, the Department of Homeland Security provided funding for 2 meteorological stations for each of our 55 counties. When I came on board in 2005, those 110 plus stations were boxed up at Big Chimney in the warehouse and had not been installed. So we implemented a program then to get those gauges out. They pull a variety of things such as wind speed, air, and John can probably tell you more about what they do, but yeah, all those different things that weather people like. But the prime purpose for installing those at that point was in the event of a nuclear or a biological attack to be able to do some predictive analysis of where plumes would go. There are 411 completely separate sites with a total of 764 sensors. There are 221 rain gauges with 1 sensor each and 63 stream gauges with 1 sensor each. During this past event, I was just asking Bill to make sure we had 1 gauge fail. It last reported at 24 feet, and its location was 15 feet above the stream. So that just gives you another idea of the types of record flooding that we saw. All of our information feeds directly into the Weather Service, and they ingest that into the models that they use to provide us the warnings that we push out. We are also tied into a system called IPAWS, which is the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. We have the capability to push cell phone alerts that override any other type of cell phone data or cell phone transmission to phones, along with the National Weather Service. So that gives you just kind of a brief history of the program. I'm not the technical person, I'm not the engineer, but Bill can answer any questions you might have on the operation and maintenance of how the system works.
Okay. Delegates Taslin.
Thank you again. Thank you for being here as well. So what did your office do in this instance as far as getting information out to the public? I mean, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be specific.
No.
In general, because I mean, it's obvious there was an emergency.
Yes,
and it
sir.
seems like you have, real-time data, so.
We don't push the warnings out of our office. Those all come out of the National Weather Service as it relates to weather type events. And then we pick up the feeds that they pushed or they put out, and we push those out through our social media and news releases. But the actual warnings on flood-related or weather-related events come directly from the National Weather Service. They have access to the same systems we do through the national warning systems. And so when they trigger that alert, it hits the same systems we would hit to push out any type of information.
So your stream gauges communicate directly with the Weather Service?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, next I think we have John Sikora, National Weather Service, to help us understand what the Weather Service did during the course of the events of the flooding of June 23.
Okay, well, in this particular slide presentation, we'll give you an overview of what went on weather-wise and then how we came about issuing the warnings and that sort of thing. It was a record event. Like the USGS said, they had 10 gauges reach record floods. Actually, in our particular area that we're responsible for, we had 7 of those gauges that hit record floods. We had several gauges that were in major floods, so we had a couple of seconds, a couple of thirds on the all-time record list. So a lot of those gauges were, it was definitely a record event. if we want to go on to the next slide, it's kind of give you, this is kind of a synoptic overview, what we call, what actually went on in the atmosphere. Let me get at it. Let's see. I'll just talk from here. The big picture in A is the amount of moisture that was over the area during June 23rd. The B slide is the actual steering winds, the upper level winds that carried these systems across the state. As you can see, there was more of a northwest to southeast flow on that. And the bottom one is the anomaly, which means it shows you an abnormal pattern, what to expect. It's kind of highlighted of what we were seeing that morning. This is an interesting slide. It's a trajectory slide, and it just gives you the sources of moisture that went into this system on June 23rd. The green one is actually Pacific moisture, came out off the Pacific Ocean. The blue is actually Gulf moisture, which came out of the Gulf of Mexico. And the red was the Atlantic moisture that came in, and they all met over West Virginia. It was just one of those events that, everything lined up. Okay, the ground conditions, we've had some rain early in the year in May that basically get the ground moisture was, let's see, the antecedent conditions, the amount of moisture in the soil. So we were pretty wet going into this system on the 23rd, and it's highlighted here on those graphics. You can see there's like different colors, the blues and greens on the other side, which means that the soils were pretty wet. They couldn't hold that much water. So any kind of rain that fell on the ground basically ran off into the streams. And this is kind of an overview of the different systems that came through. There was actually four distinct systems that actually came across on the 23rd. On the morning of the 23rd, we had a mesocell complex, which is a complex of thunderstorms that moved out of the upper Great Lakes and came across the state early in that morning. That produced about 2 to 3 inches of rain over the area. Then we had a cold front that was poised to move over the state on the 23rd as well. What we had initially is the conditions were right after that first complex came through. It was cloudy in the morning. I guess we were on the phone with Jimmy saying if the sun comes out, we're in trouble because that system actually left all kinds of boundaries left over. So if we had any kind of heating with all the moisture in place, it was going to fire up some more thunderstorms later in that day. And we were okay there for an hour or two, but the sun did come out, and that second batch of thunderstorms came through, and that kind of put us on the brink. The cold front then started pushing through down through the state, and we had thunderstorms, a line of thunderstorms that came and formed out ahead of that front and pushed down, and that was the one that actually put everything over the top. And then we actually had the front come through later on in the evening with another line of storms that just basically just added to the mess. I guess we can continue through that. This is kind of a satellite loop of the actual system. We had the first one come through in the morning, then we had the other thunderstorm complex come through, then we had the line out ahead of the front coming down, and this is the one that did a lot of damage, and then we had the actual front push through, and it was a kind of a secondary line if you saw that at the end. So we had 4 things come through, and it's an unprecedented event that with all the conditions in place, we had a lot of moisture, we had all the instability, we had all the factors to cause this kind of event. We knew it was going to rain, we knew we were going to get a lot of rain, we were expecting some sort of flooding that day, but we weren't expecting this type of rainfall amount out of the system. This is a kind of another loop showing as the systems came through. The green is the actual Lewisburg rainfall. As you can see, it came through the first system, second system, kind of put us on the brink, and then the third system actually put us over. And the fourth system just kept on going. Okay. Well, anyway, what we were in constant we were constantly monitoring the whole situation. We were constantly in contact with Jimmy and the state and all the counties around that we were responsible for, saying, yeah, this one is unusual. And it was just an odd feeling. We knew stuff were going to happen, but we didn't know how much rain. And with the GS gauges and the iFlows gauges, we were able to determine to get the warnings out. We had warnings, flash flood warnings, starting early that morning with the first system, and the warnings were actually, kept on going throughout the whole day. Eventually, when we saw that it was getting really, really bad, we issued our flash flood emergencies, which is the worst kind of a scenario you can possibly get. When we issue a flash flood emergency, that means it's really the doom and gloom, and it's not pretty. We rarely issue those. I think these were the first two that we actually issued for our office. They're a rare event, and then they usually come across on these record events. As you can see, that whole swath of area that hit from Roane, Kanawha, Clay, down to Greenbrier County was all, a 5 to 7 inch rainfall event. Anytime you get anything over 2 or 3 inches here in West Virginia, you're going to have some problems. So we had 5 to 7 inches average through there, and then when you got down to Greenbrier County with the orographic effects and that sort of thing, that actually produced 8 to 9 to 10 inches of rain in some spots down there. So here, this is our AHAPS, our Advanced Hydrologic Prediction System, which is available to everybody. We push this out. This it shows you the purples were major flooding, and it kind of shows you where all what we were showing with what's going to happen with the stream gauges. So our forecasts went out. They were showing that we're going to have some sort of flooding that day. As the event went on, we actually continued to update this. So if you had this on our Advanced Hydrologic Prediction System, you were able to see the predictions of what was going to happen on the streams. This is an extreme example with at Queen Shoals, where they experienced a record flooding. That's up above Clendenin in Kanawha County. As you can see with that third system, it started rising, but when we got that 5 to 7 inch rainfall in a 6-hour period, you could see the rapid spike. So basically, this turned into a flash river flood, as well as just a regular flash flood from all the small streams and creeks. This actually evolved into a river flash flood. So the rivers came up really, really fast. And came down the gully, like the USGS said, that the water it was a record flood there as well. It did get into the intrument shelter there in the stream gauge, and the gauge went out. So at that particular point, we just basically were trying to figure out how much rain was actually was falling, and we put that into our model. We came up with a crest for that. So this constantly gets updated every hour, even sooner at some points when we push the data out. But this is our main site where you can see the actual predictions that we were pushing out along with our warnings. This is a record of the 7 stream gauges that hit record floods in our particular area. We cover most of West Virginia. Blacksburg covered southeast West Virginia with the Greenbrier, Summers, Mercer counties down that way. And they also had major flooding along with at Alderson, Hilldale, and all those gauges down that way. So it was a record event. We extensively used the iFlows network. We extensively used the data from the USGS, and we take that and try to plug all that information in and run through our models to make our predictions and issue warnings. And if you wanted to talk about that.
Hi, my name is Jamie Belinsky. I'm the meteorologist in charge of the office in Charleston. Just want to take a couple of minutes and talk about some of the decision support services that our office has provided and does provide during such events as this. First off, we do offer daily conference calls, and we also do briefing packages. And on this day, we started June 21st, and our briefing packages were daily through July 5th. We started talking about the potential for severe weather and the potential for flooding, starting back on the 21st. These briefing packages, people were aware. June 23rd briefing, we were talking to numerous people, emergency management. We were talking to a lot of our partners and even sending out messages through our Facebook and social media at this point. By about 2:29 a.m. in the morning, Kanawha County called us, and we discussed to them the potential for the day. Later on in the afternoon, Boy Scouts. We work very closely with Boy Scouts through the emergency management in Fayette County. They had some Boy Scouts at the summit, so they were asking us questions on that. We were giving them our best information on what we expected to happen during the daytime. Later on that morning, I received a call from the National Guard. We briefed them on our expectations for the day. And then what John was talking about was also a call to Jimmy that morning. Actually, it was right around the afternoon hours, and about 10 minutes after noon. And the Weather Service has a very close working relationship with Homeland Security. We're very fortunate to have that close working relationship where I can pick up the phone and I can call Jimmy or anyone over at Homeland Security and give them a quick brief on what we expect. So that day, we did call, we talked to them. Like John said, we told them, sun comes out, we're in trouble. The staff was getting very concerned throughout the morning hours about the amount of moisture that was available in the atmosphere. So we knew that if it did rain, there was going to be substantial rainfall that would occur in any given location. So we briefed Jimmy and his group, and we were in constant contact. Shortly after that briefing with Jimmy, our office went ahead and put out a special package that's available. If you guys are ever interested in getting on that, we will send that out to you as well. Typically goes to superintendents, to emergency management. It goes to Homeland Security. It goes to anybody who's asked that's first responders or concerned with communities and preparedness. That package will go out. Winter, summer, spring, fall, anytime the weather is above the normal, that briefing package will go out. Okay, next please. Also, Kanawha County EMA briefed at 2:23, and then as John mentioned, by 4:26 that afternoon, John is our service hydrologist in the office. He was on the desk that day, and he was in constant communication with Nicholas County at that point about the flash flood emergency. So we knew we were in trouble. We knew that we had to basically amplify the message that was coming out of our office at that point. Our message comes out. It goes through not only Homeland Security, radio stations, television stations, the news media picks it up, TV meteorologists will then broadcast that. So in this case, we wanted to amp up that message to let them know this was not your typical flash flood. This was something above and beyond what normally would occur. Okay? And then Blacksburg, we have offices that cover West Virginia. We cover the majority of it, and as the Charleston office, we are the state liaison. So it is our job to work with emergency management. But Blacksburg also this day was obviously Greenbrier County is Blacksburg's area. We were communicating with that office. That office was communicating with emergency management as well. They did numerous calls. They also started doing briefings. They started video briefings on June 20th, and they went through the 24th. They also worked with our office and briefed Homeland Security as well. Next, please. And then I will give this back over to John, since our service hydrologist is best to talk about water because I'm the meteorologist. So.
Yeah, prior to the event, we knew something was going to happen. And our National Center was actually putting out slight risks. And what that means is there's the enhanced potential for excessive rainfall. And this is kind of the scenario of what they put out, and that's kind of the bullseye after the event. So we work closely with our national centers, and they provide us with the information on a national scale, and then we hone it down with the information that we have to push out the predictions and the warnings to everybody else. And these are just some of the pictures from that, and kind of nobody really wants to see those, really. And like I said, it was a record event. We knew something was coming. We were preparing everybody, saying something's coming. It was one of those events where not only did we have excessive rainfall and flooding, but we also had the threat of severe weather. It was basically one of those weather events that we had everything in that particular event except for snow. So we had a tornado threat, we had severe thunderstorm threat, we had hail threats, we had wind, we had, and obviously excessive rain and flooding. So it was one of those top 5 events actually in the Ohio Valley that through the years since, I guess, not the last turn of the century, but prior to that, this event made the top 5 in this particular area in the Ohio Valley. So it was an extreme event, and I think it was well warned at the point. We could have probably done a little bit better, but with this type of rainfall, it's hard to fathom that the atmosphere can push that kind of rainfall out of the clouds, but it can happen. But thanks to the Homeland Security and the iFlows network and the GS for their gauging network for all that information that they provide to us so we can get the warnings and the predictions out to you.
John, I'm going to ask you, just real quick, when one of the graphics that you showed, I think it was about the third one, you showed the collision of the 3 moisture plumes as they were curling, out of the southern Virginia area, curling back into the mid West Virginia area. Something that I've sort of been watching, being an engineer, I sort of get technical and think about some of this stuff. But would you agree with me that the upslope conditions within eastern West Virginia, as the moisture comes across from Ohio or out of Kentucky and comes across West Virginia, as it gets into the Richwood area, eastern, what happens is it starts compressing on those upslope conditions, if you will, and start wringing the moisture out of the atmosphere?
Well, basically, it's the orographic effect. It's exactly right. When the wind hits the mountains, it actually forces the air up. And when it does that, it actually forces the moisture out, because as the cooler the air gets, it can't hold that much moisture. So basically, if you got warm air rising really quick, and the mountains provide that, and when they hit the mountains, it cools the air and it forces the rain out. So that the orographic effects did play a factor in that.
Okay, and do our models take into consideration that particular effect when you're doing predictive work in West Virginia?
Yes, we do have that in our models. Okay. So it is enhanced if you look through all our model data, that there was it's always enhanced over the mountains, especially when the winds are basically out of the west, you get the orographic effects on the western side. Now, if the winds are coming in from the other side, from the ocean, from the east, you get the same effects, but it basically affects the eastern panhandle and the slopes. Basically, Shavers Mountain kind of divides right in Randolph down through Pocahontas. Mm-hmm. And so if you get the eastward component, it rains towards the east. If you get the westward component, which most of our systems do come from, 90% of them do, you're going to get the orographic effects on the west side. And that's exactly kind of what happened.
Okay. Any other questions? Delegate Satazla.
Just a quick question. The only thing that I can see that you might be able to predict to do something is the abnormal amount of moisture. How fast can you come up with that? Because that seems to be the governing factor here. It's just there. I mean, you see a mountain of it now. Obviously, if it breaks up, believe me, I don't know enough about it. I'm a groundwater guy, but if it breaks up because of wind shear or something like that, you may never see a problem. But it seemed to me that that's the only thing that I've heard that to predict was just an inordinate amount of moisture in the atmosphere.
That particular day, yes, we had actually 3 moisture sources, which is highly unusual for that to happen here.
Is that something you can throw red flags up as early as possible?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And we saw that particular thing happen in our national centers as well, days ahead. We knew something was going to happen, especially with the moisture in place.
That's what I'm hearing.
We just didn't know how much it was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen, but we didn't know how bad it was going to happen. And then that's based, as we're with our radar data and the gauge data, we were able to see right off the bat that this was going to be an unusual event, and that's why we went out with the emergencies.
This kind of stuff, unfortunately, is not uncommon in the Appalachian.
No.
There have been water supply papers written about this from Virginia. I mean, 20 inches of rain has occurred in the past,
Right.
they can even map the damage, so it's,
Yeah, this is one that we will definitely have in the books. And like I said, it was the fifth deadliest event in the Ohio Valley, basically the Ohio, West Virginia area.
it seems to me if you see those types of moisture buildups, that would be the time to, but it sounds like you did what you needed to do anyway. I mean, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, like I said, we knew something was going to happen. We were telling everybody something was going to happen, but like I said, when it actually unfolded, we didn't know how bad it was going to happen.
Thanks.
And so, does the modeling programs that you have give you the capabilities to anticipate that well enough into the future?
Right.
And my question, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand, is there other things that we need to be doing looking to the future?
Well, the main thing is with the more rain gauges we have, the better coverage we have. We're able to put that information into our models. Like I said, we do the best we can with what we have out there. There's pretty good coverage out there now, but there are a lot of places that we have holes, and those are the places, especially in this kind of terrain, where our radar tends to overshoot a lot of stuff and doesn't get into the nooks and crannies. That's where the rain gauges come in. That's where the stream gauges come in. We definitely use that, and then we base all that information, and we put that into our models, and we're able to see out fairly well and what's going to happen.
Sounds good. One more question. Delegate Ambler?
Mr. Chairman, sir, and this may, and I'm not sure whose question this may be Homeland Security, but we started putting out the warnings early, and because at home on television, things, they came over, potential from Blacksburg, from Greenbrier County. And then later on, with storm and winds and things, as power went out, then say in White Sulphur with no cell service and things, and the use of landlines declining constantly, people became somewhat in the dark of what was happening. And then the 8 to 10 inches of rain came down through Howard's Creek, and in a matter of moments, the flash flood. I guess my question is, are we now looking in the aftermath of what has happened to some other type of a warning device for the population who do not get through because of cell service going out or the electricity going down or whatever? Are we looking at some form of early warning so that these people have a little more warning to what is going on?
Okay, well, we do have NOAA Weather Radio, which broadcasts 24/7, and that sends out the tone alerts. It's radio, but it's like anything else. If there are some areas that it doesn't quite get in there, but for the most part, if the power goes out, that's still broadcasting. That's our main way of toning the broadcast system to issue when the warnings go out. There's also, like I said, if the south tower goes out, there goes your social media, there goes everything else. There's still the landlines that are still, they're able to do the reverse calls. That obviously that happened as well. So there are ways, and there's still some gaps. I'm not sure the exact way to do it because there's also internet. If people have internet, they can get the warnings that way as well. If they're monitoring the system, that's always been a problem here in West Virginia just because of the terrain. Radio is great for the most part, but we have the quiet zone up in Pocahontas County, so there's a lot of radio signals that you can't get anyway. So it's always been a dilemma here, but like I said, we have the NOAA Weather Radio, we have social media, we have several different alert systems that the state provides, that the county provides. Different counties have different ways of, I think Kanawha County has sirens that they can turn on as well.
Looking at, because there are no sirens in White Sulphur and things when Howard Creek came. I mean, it was a matter of moments. No one really knew for whatever reason. So I guess my question still, are we looking now in the aftermath of maybe putting through Homeland Security or something, some form of early warning device, because I don't know too many people have NOAA, radios in my area. And so, they become blind in this, and then next thing you know, the water's in their yard or in their house. And I was just wondering if Homeland Security or something, were we looking, now that we have, this, I understand the 8 to 10 and the perfect storm situation that you explained, but if people do not know that, I wouldn't have, if my television had went out, I would not have had any idea how much rain was going to come, and thankfully I was, above. We need Noah's flood, maybe to do that, not a 1,000-year flood. But I was just curious if we were looking now in the aftermath with EMS and, Office of Security and things, if we're looking at a way of letting people know when they lose their ability to communicate to what's going on, other than first responders. That was
Right.
Just a couple of things there. The sirens and that type of warning system is something that's a local issue, whether or not the county or the city wants to develop that. The warning system here in Kanawha County was primarily put in just because of the chemicals to push warnings out. We've kind of gone away from the old style systems. When I started in the fire service a few years ago, alerted the fire department with a siren. Now technology's evolved. We've gone away from those types of things, and we rely on paging systems and things like that. But we use every technology that you have, both at our disposal, and we even have access to the federal technology. The same system that the president uses, we use during this event. But we preach people constantly. And one of the things in the preparedness kit is a battery-operated radio or a crank-operated radio without power. And we learned this when all the power was out. Back to the old Crown fire system. We would relay information via public safety communications fire department, and they'd have to go to the door to get messages out. So I don't know that there is a perfect solution to this, because no matter where you are in the state, it's a little bit different. But as far as the technical available, are being implemented.
Delegate White.
There are locks and dams. Keep this from, were they pretty big in keeping this from being a bigger catastrophe?
I can speak to that just a bit, but that's more a question for the Corps of Engineers. John and I met with them
2 weeks ago, I think, and they discussed kind of how they work through the process, and they have access to that same data that that we're serving, that the Weather Service uses, and by all accounts, they held the water they could. For example, on the Elk, it was not only rain above the dam, but there was a lot of rain below Sutton Dam, so there was just really not much they could do. They held everything they could. Same with Summersville. The Greenbrier itself is not regulated at all, so no control there. But by all accounts, yeah, I mean, the valves were turned off as much as they could be. So.
Thank you. I've used your site for years for fishing.
Sure. Any other questions?
Homeland Security and all, and what a great job you all did do in this, without a doubt. The Weather Service and everyone else. I believe everybody did everything that was humanly possible to alert people to this, and the catastrophic events that took place and the loss of lives certainly would have been much higher had it not been. And in saying that, obviously we need to look at some other means to try to prevent this from happening again, at least the loss of lives. The destruction of property, we're not going to harness Mother Nature. We know that, but maybe we can get something that would help cut down on the loss of lives in these situations again. But I do want to say thank you for all in Greenbrier County, in my district. We certainly appreciate everything that was done by the Weather Service, Homeland Security, and all for the event that helping us and getting us back to. Thank you.
To our presenters, thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate your input. It helps us as legislators to understand better how we can serve you as we serve our constituents. So any other business come before the body? If not, I'll recognize the chairman for a motion. The motion is to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And the ayes have it.